What if Michael Jordan's retirement wasn't just due to tragedy? What if gambling played a bigger role? Michael Jordan was at the absolute height of his career in October 1993, just 30 years old, healthy, and dominating. 4 months earlier, the Bulls had clinched their third straight championship. He'd led the league in scoring, again for the 7th season in a row. Finals MVP, Olympic gold, a global icon, a living legend. He wasn't just great, he was untouchable. And then he walked away. No injuries, no scandal, just gone. Retired out of nowhere and started playing baseball. It doesn't make any sense. Taking 2 years off for baseball at the very peak of everything, it didn't add up. Because behind all the glory, the rings, the commercials, Michael Jordan had a secret, one that could have destroyed everything he built: gambling. And the more that comes to light, the more the question haunts everything. Was that first retirement really about grief, or was it a calculated exit before the truth caught up? Today, in this video, we will uncover the truth that had been hidden for decades. This is the real story of Michael Jordan's gambling addiction and how it almost destroyed his NBA legacy. Michael Jordan was everything the world wanted in a hero. The face of the NBA, a 3-time champion, a global icon. Every time he stepped on the court, it felt like witnessing greatness in real time. Clean cut, charismatic, clutch. He was the perfect package. But off the court, that image started to crack. Jordan had a side few people saw, a side that lived for the rush, not just from game-winning shots, but from the gamble. And it wasn't just poker night with friends, it was high-stakes gambling, poker, blackjack, and endless rounds of golf, often with way more than bragging rights on the line. In 1992, it started going public, a $57,000 check written to James Buhler. At first, Jordan tried to pass it off as a business loan, but later in court, the truth came out. It was to pay off gambling losses from golf and poker. And that was just the beginning. Then came Richard Esquinas, a California businessman who said Jordan racked up a gambling debt of over $1.2 million during a wild 8-day golf binge. Esquinas even published a book about it, Michael and Me, calling it a cry for help. In the end, they settled on $300,000, but the damage was done. Jordan was no longer just the GOAT. He was a gambler with massive debts, caught up with criminals, and lying under oath to cover his tracks. The contrast couldn't have been sharper, an icon in public, but privately spiraling into something darker. Now, here's where things stop being just about golf and friendly wagers and start getting real. That $57,000 check Jordan wrote to James "Slim" Buhler, it wasn't just going to some guy he owed for losing a few holes on the green. Buhler wasn't just a gambler, he was a convicted drug dealer, and more than that, he was a key piece in a money laundering operation that funneled drug money through high-stakes gambling. Buhler worked directly under James Edward "Ned" Johnson, a full-blown drug kingpin out of North Carolina. This wasn't random. Federal documents revealed that Buhler used golf games and gambling sessions to clean dirty money. Big cash amounts changed hands under the pretense of bets. Bets with high-profile people. People like Michael Jordan. His fame made the perfect cover. Who's going to question the greatest basketball player in the world losing big on the golf course? It all looked innocent, at least on the surface. But the truth? It was anything but. Jordan ended up on the witness stand during Buhler's trial, and that's where things got messy. Then came the moment that changed everything. On July 23, 1993, Michael Jordan's father, James Jordan Sr., was murdered. According to the official story, it was a random act of violence. 2 teenagers, Daniel Green and Larry Demery, supposedly spotted him sleeping in his red Lexus SC400, tried to steal it, and shot him. That was it. Simple, clean. but it never felt simple, and it definitely wasn't clean. There were red flags everywhere. His body was found dumped in a swamp 60 miles away in South Carolina. The car stripped and vandalized. But it wasn't until weeks later, after reports that James Jordan was missing, that the link was even made. Even the FBI started poking around, looking into financial issues James had with a company he ran in South Carolina. And when investigators followed up on the murder, they didn't just stop with the teenagers. They questioned James Slim Buhler, the same man at the center of Michael's gambling scandal. Jordan's own people reportedly went to him, looking for answers. Why? Because something didn't sit right. Buhler, already locked up for laundering drug money, dodged the questions, just brushed it off, claimed he didn't know anything. But the fact that his name came up at all during the murder investigation, that said plenty. And then, just a few months later, in October 1993, Michael Jordan announced his retirement. No warning, no build-up, just done. He stood at a press conference and said he'd lost the desire to play, that there was nothing left to prove, that it was time for a new challenge. And like that, he was gone, off to play baseball. Now, here's where the silence starts to scream. Just 2 days after Michael Jordan shocked the world by announcing his retirement, the NBA made another announcement, quiet and barely noticed. The league officially ended its internal investigation into his gambling. That's it. Done. No further questions. No wrongdoing. The timing, way too perfect. Commissioner David Stern, the man who built the NBA into a global empire, was very clear. There is nothing to see here. Jordan was clean. Everything was fine. But was it? Because this wasn't just about a few late-night card games or golf bets. Jordan had been tied to massive gambling debts, convicted criminals, even federal court testimony, the $57,000 check, the $1.2 million owed, lies on the stand. And that check? It was written to a man tied directly to a drug kingpin who used gambling to launder money. This wasn't a tabloid rumor. This was real. On paper, in courtrooms, and yet no real follow-up. No deeper investigation, no hard questions. The media, silent. Back then, there was no social media, no YouTube exposés, no independent voices digging beneath the surface. The NBA had a tight grip on the narrative, and the major networks played along. They needed Jordan just as much as the league did. He was the golden goose, the biggest marketing machine in sports history. So, the story stayed simple. Michael was grieving. He was tired. He wanted a break. Case closed. And all the while, the questions that should have shaken the league to its core were just swept under the rug. Nobody wanted to dig. Nobody wanted to know. Because the truth, it could have blown the whole thing apart. At first glance, it all just looked like harmless competition. Jordan was a guy who loved to win, right? Loved the thrill, the pressure, the challenge. It was addiction. Richard Esquinas saw it firsthand. In his 1993 book, Michael and Me, Our Gambling Addiction, My Cry for Help, he broke down just how deep Jordan had sunk. According to him, it started small. Golf games, playful wagers, but it spiraled fast. Within 8 days, Jordan had racked up over $1.2 million in gambling losses. One single day alone, Jordan dropped $473,000. Another day, $626,000 gone in 18 holes. And it wasn't just Esquinas footing the bill. At home, Jordan's wife Juanita was reportedly writing $50,000 checks to cover his gambling debts. Quietly, repeatedly. That's not a fluke. That's a pattern. And the scary part? Jordan never really owned up to it. When the media asked questions, he'd dodge. When he testified, he'd lied until he couldn't anymore.
Do you have a gambling problem?
No, I enjoy it. It's a hobby. If I had a problem, I'd be starving. I'd be hawking this watch. My championship rings, I would sell my house. I would do this. My wife would left me, or she'd be starving. My kids would be starving. I do not have a problem. I enjoy gambling.
Even then, the full truth stayed buried. No accountability, just embarrassment, silence, more bets. That's how addiction works. It feeds on silence. It hides behind fame. And in Jordan's case, it was wrapped in a billion-dollar image. So polished, so untouchable, that nobody dared to ask the real questions. By 1995, Jordan was back. The number 23 returned. The dominance returned. Another three-peat, another round of glory. Just like that, the king had reclaimed his throne, but the question still lingered. What really happened in '93? Because according to everything buried under the headlines, that retirement, it may not have been a choice at all. Behind closed doors, the NBA had a serious image problem. Their most iconic player, Michael Jordan, was tangled in gambling scandals. Massive debts, courtroom drama, and links to criminal figures. What really happened? According to theory, and what the timeline strongly suggests, this wasn't a break. It was a forced timeout, a quiet agreement. Jordan steps away, the NBA keeps its golden image intact, and the world never gets the full story. A damage control move. Because if the truth had come out about the gambling, the debts, the people involved, it could have crushed not just a career, but the entire league's reputation. So, Jordan stepped away, and when the smoke cleared, he came back, better than ever on the court. But the shadows never left. The legacy remains. The trophies, the titles, the greatness. It's all still there. But so are all the ghosts, the silence, the secrets.